Okay, the next section of 9.2 talks about radians. And so what you have to know from there is that in the unit circle, we can talk about a couple of things. The unit circle, first of all, says that the radius is 1. So this is the 0.10. So I'm putting a little bit more than the radian stuff in here. But these are all things that, I'm assuming that you have super good in your brain already. And that we can talk about, if theta is 45 degrees, we know that that is also translate to pi on 4 radians. And how do you change that? Well, to go from degrees to radians, you multiply the degrees that you have by pi on 180. And to go from radians to degrees, you multiply by 180 on pi. So I'm assuming all of you know that. And in the unit circle, we talk about, that sometimes we say that if this angle is 45 degrees, we sometimes say it's pi on 4 radians, right? It's kind of a length instead of an angle measure. All right, I think that's all that's in there. We know that 2 pi is 360 degrees, and pi on 3 is 60 degrees. Pi on 6 is 30 degrees. So all those regular exact values you would need to know, and you would know how to do this conversion from degrees to radians and radians to degrees. So that's pretty easy. All right, the next section, so we'll go on to it's actually 9.2.5. It's the special angles. And those are the ones I just talked about. 90 degrees, 60 degrees. And these are the ones we get from the triangles, the special triangles. 180, 360. Okay, I know everybody knows those. I need you to look at 9.2 in your book, and that's the one that goes through the unit circle definition that says, if I draw this here, that this point is actually going to be cos theta sine theta. That's a really, really important thing. And then it also goes, all trig functions are positive here. The sine is positive here. The cosine, the tangent is positive here. And the cosine is positive here. That means all the other trig functions are negative in those places. Okay, so that's another big thing to know. And you don't need to worry about the tangent stuff. So there's a little thing in your book, the place I'm asking you to look at. I'll go over here. I'm just where we were zooming before. And it talks about the tangent right here. You don't need to know about that. You just need to know the values of the tangent. Okay, so please look at this, boundary angles right here, and ignore the tangent part of that section. You don't need to know that. And then in 9.2.7, it talks about domains and ranges. Okay, well, listen, if all the values of the trig functions exist on this circle with a radius of 1, okay, that means this length is the cosine of theta and that length is the sine of theta, then the sine and cosine are both between -1 and 1. Okay, so that's a given. Sine and cosine are between -1 and 1. And it also talks about the periodicity. So what it's saying is, I could have the values there for sine and cosine, and if I went over in symmetry, okay, I could see that this length is the same as that length, so this is the same as the sine of theta. Okay, that length is the same as that length. That means that is the same as that. And since cosine is negative over here, this is negative cos theta. Okay, because it's the same distance but in the negative direction. So you need to remember those ideas about the unit circle, and they go through a couple of them in your book. But basically what needs to happen, girls, is that you need to be able to tell me what the cosine of 7 pi on 3 is by rolling around this circle, okay, or somehow. Okay, I think what we did in class was we said, okay, if pi on 3 is right here, then 2 pi on 3 is there, and 3 pi on 3 is there, and 4 pi on 3 is there, and 5 pi on 3 is there, and this is 6 pi on 3, which is equal to 2 pi, right? And so 7 pi on 3 is right here. And if it ends up in that spot, then the cosine of 7 pi on 3 is the same as the cosine of pi on 3. And I hope you know that that's a half. Okay? Those things, those exact values, are what we're going to be really focusing on more than, you writing down something about the unit circle. Okay, so exact values, really big deal. If you haven't memorized the triangles or the table or something that do these exact values for you, this must be done immediately. Okay,